I never expected my quiet suburban life would explode into chaos when the HOA torched my barn with a flamethrower, not realizing they just declared war on a government detective with access to federal resources. How far would I go to expose the sinister conspiracy hiding behind our community's perfectly manicured lawns? The sound of knocking jolted me awake. Not gentle, friendly knocking, but the sharp, demanding kind that means trouble. I grabbed my robe and stumbled to the door, my brain still foggy from working late on a government fraud case. When I opened it, Eleanor Thompson stood on my porch. Her lips were pinched tight, making her look like she'd just bitten into a lemon. A giant clipboard hugged against her chest like armor. "Good morning, Mr. Lawson," she said, though nothing in her voice suggested she wished me a good anything. "I'm here on official Pinewood Gardens HOA business." I rubbed my eyes. After 3 years living here, I recognized trouble when I saw it. Eleanor wasn't just any neighbor. She ruled our community with an iron fist disguised in designer gloves. "What can I help you with?" I kept my voice even professional. 15 years as a financial crimes detective taught me to never show weakness to potential trouble. "That eyesore," she pointed with manicured nails toward my backyard. "Your barn. It violates Section 7.3 of our community guidelines on acceptable structures." My grandfather's barn had stood on this property for 67 years. When developers bought the surrounding farmland and created Pinewood Gardens, my deed included a special rule, a grandfather clause, allowing the barn to stay. I'd explained this to Eleanor twice before. "We've been through this, Eleanor. The barn is protected under the original property agreement." She flipped through pages on her clipboard. "The board has reconsidered. That clause only applied to the original owner, not to you when you purchased the property." This was a lie. I checked every document with my lawyer before buying. "I have the paperwork that proves otherwise," I said calmly. "Well, paperwork can be wrong. The board has issued 3 formal warnings already." This was news to me. I never received any warnings. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps you should check your mail more regularly. We can't help if you're too busy with your job to read official notices." The way she said job made my neck hairs rise. Most neighbors thought I worked in office administration. Few knew I investigated financial criminals for the Treasury Department, work that often took me away for weeks. "The barn stays, Eleanor. I have legal documentation." She gave a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. "We've voted. You have 72 hours to demolish that structure, or the HOA will take action. We've been very patient." From across the street, I noticed Eleanor's husband Victor watching us. Unlike his wife's animated anger, his face remained completely blank. Their perfect lawn stretched between us like a green moat. Victor stood completely still, hands in pockets, just observing. My detective instincts hummed. Something wasn't right here. "I'll need to see these supposed warnings," I said. Eleanor's smile tightened further. "Check your files. The decision is final. 72 hours, Mr. Lawson." As she walked away, my elderly neighbor Meredith Hayes waved from her garden next door. Once Eleanor was out of earshot, Meredith hurried over, still clutching gardening shears. "I couldn't help overhearing," she whispered. "Be careful with that woman. Last month, the Jacobsons refused to take down their basketball hoop. 2 days later, their car tires were slashed. No proof it was connected, of course." "Thanks for the warning," I said, watching Eleanor stiff back as she returned to her house where Victor waited, still watching. Inside, I immediately called my lawyer, Sam Williams. After explaining the situation, he sounded worried. "This is concerning, Jack. The grandfather clause is ironclad. There's no legal way they can force removal." "Then why the sudden push?" "Hard to say. Have you done anything recently to upset the HOA?" I thought back. Nothing unusual. I've been away on a case for the last 3 weeks. Just got back yesterday. "That's interesting timing," Sam noted. "Send me the supposed warnings if they turn up. Meanwhile, install security cameras around the barn. Document everything." After hanging up, I dug through 3 weeks of mail. No warnings from the HOA. Either Eleanor was lying, or someone had removed them before I could see them. I spent the afternoon installing security cameras, pointing them at both the barn and my front door. While mounting the last camera, I noticed Victor Thompson watching me from their upstairs window. When our eyes met, he didn't turn away, just kept staring with that same blank expression. That evening, I received an email from Eleanor with an attachment labeled, "Final Warning." The document looked official but lacked the HOA attorney's signature that should have been there. Before I could respond, my phone rang. The caller ID showed my supervisor at the Treasury Department. "Jack, we may have a problem," Director Phillips said without greeting. "Someone's been asking questions about your current case." My heart quickened. I'd been investigating a money laundering operation involving real estate developments in 3 counties. "What kind of questions?" "Someone tried to access your case files using outdated department credentials. The system flagged it. Any idea who might be trying to figure out what you're working on?" "No," I said slowly, looking toward the Thompson house where lights now glowed from their kitchen. "But I might have an idea where to start looking." After we hung up, I headed to my barn. The old structure wasn't just sentimental. It housed a small office where I kept backups of case notes. As I approached, motion lights illuminated the path. The padlock on the barn door hung open, swinging slightly. I froze. Someone had been inside. Drawing my off-duty weapon, I pushed the door open carefully. Nothing seemed disturbed at first glance. My files appeared untouched, but a small red light blinked from behind a stack of hay bales. Something that hadn't been there this morning. Moving closer, I discovered a small electronic device with an antenna. A tracker? A listening device? As I reached to examine it, headlights swept across the barn entrance. Car pulled into my driveway. Through the barn window, I watched as Victor Thompson stepped out alone. He looked around nervously before approaching my front door. What did Eleanor's husband want at 10 p.m.? And why did he look so different now? Afraid instead of blank-faced. I slipped the electronic device into my pocket and moved toward the barn door, unsure whether I was facing a threat or about to uncover what was really happening in Pinewood Gardens. Flames shot into the night sky, turning darkness into an angry orange glow. The heat slapped my face as I sprinted across my backyard in pajamas and bare feet. "Stop! What are you doing?" I shouted. My beloved barn, my grandfather's barn, was burning. 3 figures stood silhouetted against the inferno. I recognized them instantly. Eleanor Thompson, her right-hand man Douglas Winters, and Wendy Foster, the HOA treasurer. Douglas held what looked like a modified garden tool, a weed torch converted into something more powerful. "Call 911. I yelled toward Meredith's house. My elderly neighbor had awakened me minutes ago, pounding desperately on my door at 2 a.m. "They're burning your barn. Hurry!" she'd gasped, still in her nightgown, fear making her voice shake. Now, facing the arsonists, I felt something snap inside me. This wasn't just property damage. This was personal, deliberate, criminal. "What have you done?" I demanded, approaching the trio. Eleanor turned, her face glowing in the firelight, not with shame or fear but satisfaction. "Oh, look who's finally awake," she said, voice dripping with fake sweetness. "This is what happens when you challenge the HOA detective." I stopped cold. Detective? I'd never told anyone in Pinewood Gardens about my real job. As far as neighbors knew, I worked a boring desk job for the government. Surprised, Douglas laughed, the flames reflecting in his glasses. "We know exactly who you are and what you do. Question is, does your government agency know about your little side business?" "Side business?" I had no idea what he meant. "You're committing a crime," I said, my training kicking in. "Arson is a felony. The police are on their way." "Are they?" Wendy spoke for the first time, checking her watch. "That's strange. I called them 20 minutes ago about a dangerous fire you started. They should be here by now." My mind raced. They were framing me. But why? What could be worth this risk? Behind me, Meredith's voice called out, "Fire department is coming." I called them. Eleanor's smile faltered slightly. "We should go," she murmured to the others. As they turned to leave, I grabbed Douglas's arm. "Why are you doing this?" For a second, something like fear flickered across his face. You should have just sold the property when we made the offer last year. Now it's too late. I never received any offer. Douglas jerked his arm free. Ask your real estate agent why. Not our problem now. My real estate agent, Sarah Jenkins, had moved away suddenly 6 months after I purchased the property. No forwarding address. The barn's roof groaned, then collapsed inward, sending a shower of sparks skyward. I stepped back from the intensity of heat, my mind spinning. Inside that barn was my small office where I'd kept backup files on my current money laundering investigation. In the distance, sirens wailed. Eleanor and her accomplices walked calmly toward the street as though they'd just finished a friendly visit. You won't get away with this, I called after them. Eleanor turned back, her face now serious. We already have, Mr. Lawson. Check your email. The HOA documented your repeated violations of fire codes. We tried to stop you from burning trash tonight, but arrived too late. So sad. As they disappeared into the night, I stood helpless, watching childhood memories burn. The fire department arrived minutes later, but it was too late to save the structure. All they could do was prevent the fire from spreading to my house. Any idea how it started? The fire captain asked after they'd contained the blaze. Yes, 3 members of my HOA did this. I have a witness. He looked skeptical. We received reports you were burning trash illegally, and it got out of control. That's a lie. I was asleep when this started. My neighbor Meredith woke me up. Is this your neighbor? He pointed to where Meredith stood wrapped in a blanket, talking to a police officer. I hurried over. Meredith, tell them what you saw. Her eyes were wide, frightened. I just saw the fire from my window and came to wake Jack. I didn't see how it started. My jaw dropped. But you said. I'm sorry, I was confused. It was dark. She wouldn't meet my eyes. The police officer closed his notebook. Sir, we've received documentation from your HOA about previous warnings regarding fire hazards on your property. Those are fake. They're setting me up. The officer exchanged glances with the fire captain. We'll investigate, but right now, there's no evidence supporting your claim. Do you have working smoke detectors in your home? The fire marshal will need to inspect. I was being treated like a suspect. I want to file charges against Eleanor Thompson, Douglas Winters, and Wendy Foster for arson. We'll take your statement, the officer said, clearly unconvinced. As emergency personnel worked, I noticed Victor Thompson standing at the edge of my property, hands in the pockets of his bathrobe. Unlike the others, he seemed troubled by the fire, his face lined with what looked like genuine worry. When our eyes met, he quickly turned away, heading back toward his house. By sunrise, firefighters had finally left. The barn was nothing but charred wood and ashes. I stood in rubber boots, sifting through debris, looking for anything salvageable. My hidden case files were gone. The locked file cabinet had melted from the heat. Jack, a soft voice spoke behind me. I turned to find Meredith, looking small and afraid in the morning light. Why did you lie to the police? I asked, unable to keep the hurt from my voice. They threatened my grandson, she whispered, glancing around nervously. Douglas came to my door right after I called you. Said if I told anyone what I saw, they'd make sure Tyler lost his scholarship. Tyler was Meredith's only grandchild, attending college on a full academic scholarship. Her pride and joy. How could they affect his scholarship? Eleanor's brother sits on the university board. Please understand, I had no choice. I softened. It's okay, Meredith. I don't blame you. There's something else, she said, her voice dropping even lower. This isn't the first fire. The Miller's shed burned down last year after they fought the HOA about their fence height. Everyone thought it was an accident. Why are they targeting me specifically? I don't know, but... She stopped suddenly, eyes widening as she looked past me. I turned to see Victor Thompson approaching slowly, hands still in his pockets. You should go, Meredith, I said quietly. She nodded, hurrying away. Victor waited until she was gone before speaking. I'm sorry about your barn, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. Your wife did this. He winced. I know. That's why I'm here. He pulled something from his pocket, a USB drive. This belongs to you. I took it from your office in the barn yesterday. I stared at him, rage building. You broke in. To save this. He held out the drive. Eleanor would have destroyed it. She doesn't know I have it. Why would you help me? Victor glanced toward his house. Because I can't stop her anymore. But maybe you can. He pressed the drive into my hand. There's a reason they want your property so badly. It's not about the barn or HOA rules. Then what? Look under it. With that cryptic message, he turned to leave. Victor, I called after him. What happens when Eleanor discovers you took this? His smile was sad. Nothing good. He walked away, shoulders hunched. I looked down at the drive in my palm, then at the smoking ruins of my barn. What was hidden beneath this property that made it worth committing arson? And why did Victor Thompson just risk everything to help me find out? Smoke stung my eyes as firefighters battled the last flames. My beautiful barn gone. Decades of history turned to ash in minutes. Through the chaos, I spotted Eleanor speaking with the fire chief. Her designer shoes somehow spotless despite the muddy scene. It was clearly an illegal burn pit, she announced loudly, pointing at me. We've warned him repeatedly about fire hazards. The chief nodded, scribbling notes. I tried to interrupt, but a firefighter handed me a citation instead. Unbelievable. They were actually buying Eleanor's lies. You can't just make up stories. I shouted across the yard. You did this. I saw you. Eleanor's face hardened. Be careful throwing around wild claims, detective. Stress can make people say crazy things. She smiled at the chief. Poor man works too hard. My stomach dropped. Detective? How did she know? As emergency vehicles finally pulled away, leaving me alone with the ruins, I fell to my knees. Everything was gone, case files, family photos, my grandfather's tools. I punched the charred earth, my knuckles coming away black. Something glinted among the ashes. A metal case partially melted but intact. I hadn't put it there. Inside was a flash drive labeled Pinewood Finances and a note. Not safe. Trust no one. I was hoping that survived. I whirled around. Meredith stood behind me, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Not the friendly neighbor I thought I knew. You put this here? When? How? I clutched the drive, suddenly suspicious. 3 days ago. I picked your lock. She knelt beside me, voice dropping. I'm with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. We've been watching Pinewood Gardens for 8 months. I laughed bitterly. Come on. This is a boring suburb with power-hungry garden Nazis. Not some criminal enterprise. Meredith grabbed my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. The HOA collects over $500,000 annually from residents. Where does it go? Not to community improvements. Their books show massive expenditures for services never rendered. Payments to shell companies. Money laundering, I whispered, professional instincts kicking in despite my shock. Exactly. The barn burning wasn't random. Eleanor found out who you work for. A chill ran through me. I've told no one in this neighborhood about my job. Someone told her. We believe there's a leak in your agency. Someone feeding information to targets. My phone buzzed. A text from my supervisor. Report immediately. Credentials suspended pending investigation. Meredith glanced at my screen. Right on cue. They're moving fast. Why tell me now? I asked, struggling to process everything. Because you're blown and in danger. Because I need help from someone who understands financial investigations. Because, she hesitated. Watching your barn burn, I realize they're escalating. People who ask questions about Eleanor have a habit of facing accidents. She handed me a folder. Thomas Lynn. Questioned association fees last year. Car brake failure. Sarah Wilson. Filed a complaint about missing funds. Gas leak in her home while she slept. Cold fear settled in my stomach. They're killing people over an HOA scam? This goes deeper than homeowner fees. Meredith pulled out her phone, showing me surveillance photos. Eleanor meeting with well-dressed men in expensive cars. Packages exchanged. We think Pinewood is just one piece. The puzzle started connecting in my mind, just as headlights swung into my driveway. A black SUV with government plates. That's not your backup, is it? I asked. Meredith's face went pale. No. We need to go. Now. Where? Somewhere to examine that drive. Somewhere they won't look. As we slipped into the woods behind my property, I glanced back at my home. Would I ever see it again? And who could I really trust when my own agency might be compromised? The SUV doors opened. Men in suits emerged, weapons visible under their jackets. One spoke into a radio, scanning the tree line where we hid. This isn't just about money anymore, is it? I whispered. Meredith's expression was grim. No. What would you say if I told you Eleanor Thompson isn't actually named Eleanor Thompson? Get down. Meredith yanked me behind a fallen tree as flashlight beams swept the forest floor. The government agents were 20 feet away, their radios crackling with updates. Subject residence clear. Proceeding to secondary locations. For 3 hours we crawled through mud and thorns, using every trick I'd learned in field training. Finally, we reached an abandoned hunting cabin Meredith knew about. No electricity, no running water, no chance of electronic surveillance. Elena Volkov, Meredith said, lighting a lantern. That's Eleanor's real name. Russian intelligence, inactive since 2008 or so everyone thought. I laughed. Couldn't help it. My annoying HOA president is a Russian spy? This is insane. What's insane is how perfect HOAs are for cover operations, Meredith countered. They control security cameras, approve home modifications, monitor everyone's comings and goings, levy fines that nobody questions. The flash drive revealed a maze of financial transfers, millions flowing through Pinewood Gardens accounts into offshore holdings, then to companies connected to defense contractors, tech firms with government access. They're not just laundering money, I realized, stomach sinking. They're buying secrets. Meredith nodded grimly. And information about people like you, government employees with security clearances living in their communities. Dawn broke as we puzzled through the evidence. My phone, which I'd kept powered off, buzzed the moment I turned it on. 17 missed calls from my supervisor. One voicemail. Where are you? There's a warrant for your arrest, financial fraud charges. Evidence found in your home. Call me immediately. They're framing me, I whispered. We need allies, Meredith decided. People Eleanor wouldn't suspect. We risked a visit to my elderly neighbor, Frank, who'd fought with the HOA for years over his classic car collection. His garage became our new base, hidden beneath vintage Mustangs and spare parts. Always thought something was fishy, Frank grunted, bringing us coffee. Those monthly fees keep going up, but the community pool's been under repair for 3 years. Days passed in frantic work. We gathered bank statements, property records, meeting minutes, building our case. I discovered Victor's finance background extended to cybersecurity. He'd worked for a defense contractor designing financial tracking systems for the government. He knew exactly how to hide money trails. Look at this, I said on our 5th day, pointing to a pattern in the HOA meeting attendance. Every time a major financial decision happens, Douglas makes sure certain homeowners can't attend. Scheduling conflicts, last-minute location changes. And those homeowners all have something in common, Meredith added, excitement building. They all work in sensitive positions, military, government contracts, research firms. A loud knock interrupted us. Frank appeared, wide-eyed, with Kendra, the newest HOA board member, behind him. She says she needs to talk to you, Frank explained, clearly uncomfortable. Wouldn't take no for an answer. Meredith drew her concealed weapon. How did you find us? Kendra raised her hands. Frank's been complaining about engine noise for days. It wasn't hard to guess. Her voice shook. Please, I need help. They're going to kill me next. Why should we trust you? I demanded. You're on their board. I didn't know what they really were when I joined. Tears streamed down her face. I thought it was just a neighborhood thing. Then I found financial records I wasn't supposed to see. Victor caught me looking. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing dark bruises. He said it was my only warning, that my accident was already planned for next week. What records? Meredith pressed, gun still raised. Payments to someone inside federal law enforcement. Codename Gardner. They've been feeding Eleanor information about investigations, including yours. She looked directly at me. They know about this place too. We have maybe an hour. My mind raced. How do we know this isn't a trap? Because I put a tracker on Eleanor's car. Kendra pulled out her phone, showing a moving dot. She's headed here right now with Douglas and two men I've never seen before. They have guns. Meredith and I locked eyes, a silent conversation passing between us. If Kendra was telling the truth, we were in immediate danger. If she was lying, we were walking into a trap. My brother worked for Victor's accounting firm, Kendra continued desperately. He found discrepancies in their books. 3 days later, he supposedly killed himself. But Mark was happy. He just got engaged. It wasn't suicide. The pieces clicked. That's why you joined the HOA board. To investigate from the inside. Kendra nodded, tears flowing freely now. Please help me get justice for him. Frank, who'd been quietly listening, suddenly spoke up. My security cameras caught something last night. Thought it was just teenagers. He pulled up footage on his phone, Eleanor and Douglas moving between houses in the darkness, placing small objects near gas meters. Those are remote detonators, Meredith whispered. They're planning something big to cover their tracks. Headlights swept the driveway. Through the window, I spotted Eleanor's luxury SUV turning in, followed by a black sedan. Back door, Frank urged, pulling up a trapdoor hidden under a workbench. Leads to the storm drain. I used it during the flood last year. As we scrambled for our evidence and escape, I grabbed Kendra's arm. If you're playing us, I swear. I'm not. She cut me off. But there's something else you should know. The gardener? It's your supervisor. The front door splintered open as we disappeared into the narrow concrete tunnel. Angry voices echoed behind us, followed by a single gunshot. Frank! I tried to turn back, but Meredith pulled me forward. We can't help him if we're dead, she hissed. We need to get this evidence to people we can trust. But with a traitor in my agency and killers on our trail, I had to wonder, was there anyone left we could trust at all? Glass shattered as a brick crashed through Meredith's window. We dropped to the floor as gunshots peppered the walls. Kendra screamed when a bullet whizzed past her ear. They're not just scaring us. They want us dead, I shouted over the chaos. The fancy HOA people who once complained about my lawn decorations were now trying to kill me. We crawled to the kitchen while Eleanor's hired men kicked in the front door. Meredith grabbed her gun from a hidden compartment under the sink. Take Kendra through the back. Meredith fired 2 warning shots, buying us seconds. Meet me at the abandoned mill. I pulled Kendra through the laundry room and out the garage door. A man in black lunged from the bushes, grabbing her arm. I swung my flashlight hard, connecting with his temple. He crumpled as Kendra broke free. My car's around the block, she gasped as we ran between houses. They'll be watching yours. Behind us, more gunshots and the crash of furniture told me Meredith was putting up a fight. My heart pounded. Was I leaving her to die? We reached Kendra's sedan and sped away, tires squealing. In the rearview mirror, flames licked at Meredith's roof. They were burning another building, erasing evidence just like my barn. Where's this mill? Kendra asked, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. I don't know any mill, I admitted. Meredith was sending us away from danger. Kendra's eyes widened. Then she's sacrificing herself? I finished grimly. Unless we help her. How? Those men are killers. I pulled out my phone. By getting proof that can't be burned. I played back the recording app I'd started when the brick came through the window, capturing Eleanor's voice ordering the attack. We need more, I said. The HOA keeps physical records at the community center. Financial papers, membership lists, meeting minutes. everything that connects them to their dirty business. You want to break in? Now? Kendra looked terrified. They killed my brother for less. Your brother found something important, I realized. What exactly did he discover in Victor's accounts? Property transfers, she whispered. Lots of them to shell companies near military bases. He thought it was just tax evasion. My mind raced. The HOA isn't just laundering money. They're gathering intelligence. Every house they force people out of gets bought by their shell companies. Perfect spots for watching what goes in and out of those bases. The community center loomed ahead, dark except for one office light. Someone was there. I can't, Kendra pleaded. Wait here then. Engine running. I checked my gun, 6 bullets against who knew how many enemies. If I'm not back in 20 minutes, take this recording to the state police, not the locals. The night air felt heavy as I approached the building. My lockpicking kit made quick work of the side door, and I slipped into the darkness. Voices drifted from the office, Eleanor and Victor arguing. We need to leave tonight, Eleanor hissed. The operation is blown. Not without the backup drives, Victor insisted. Years of data. Our buyers won't pay if we show up empty-handed. I inched closer, phone recording everything. The office door was ajar, light spilling into the hallway. Through the crack, I saw maps spread across the table. Red circles marked locations I recognized: military bases, research facilities, power plants. Douglas should have eliminated them by now. Eleanor checked her watch impatiently. My foot hit a loose board. The creak echoed like a gunshot. The voices stopped. I pressed against the wall as footsteps approached. Hello, Victor called out. Security. I held my breath, gun ready. The footsteps paused just on the other side of the door. Then a new sound, sirens in the distance. Someone had called the police. Eleanor cursed. Forget it, she snapped. Grab the drives. We're leaving now. As Victor turned back toward the desk, I made my move, shouldering through the door with my weapon raised. Hands where I can see them, I commanded. Eleanor's face twisted with rage. Victor lunged for a drawer. Don't, I warned. But Victor wasn't reaching for a gun. He grabbed a small device from the desk and pressed a button. A high-pitched beep filled the room as every computer screen flashed and went dark. Too late, detective. Eleanor smiled coldly. Evidence gone. The sirens grew louder. I kept my gun trained on them both. Your hired muscle talked, I bluffed. We know everything. Eleanor's smile faltered slightly. You know nothing, and you'll be dead before you learn more. The door behind me crashed open. I spun, expecting Douglas, but instead saw Meredith. Bleeding but alive, her FBI badge held high. Federal agent, she announced. Nobody move. Blood trickled down Meredith's temple as she kept her gun steady. FBI. On the ground now. Eleanor laughed. A cold sound that sent chills down my spine. Your badge means nothing. We own half your field office. Not anymore, Meredith replied. Your mole was arrested an hour ago. Something flickered in Eleanor's eyes. Fear. Finally breaking through her perfect mask. But Victor remained calm. Too calm. The drives are wiped, he reminded her quietly. They have nothing. A crash from outside made us all jump. Douglas burst in through the window, firing wildly. Meredith shoved me down as bullets whizzed overhead, splintering the wood paneling. Under the desk, I yelled, pulling her to cover. In the confusion, Eleanor grabbed a hidden gun from an ankle holster. Victor seized a laptop and sprinted for the door. Douglas laid down covering fire. My training kicked in. I rolled from under the desk, took careful aim, and shot Douglas in the leg. He fell with a scream, his weapon skidding across the floor. Victor, run! Eleanor shrieked, turning her gun on me. Meredith tackled her from behind. They crashed into filing cabinets, wrestling for control. I scrambled up to help but spotted Victor escaping through the back. Go! Meredith shouted, pinning Eleanor's gun hand. Don't let him get away with those files. I raced after Victor into the night. He was faster than he looked, darting between buildings toward the community pool. The laptop clutched against his chest contained everything. Proof of their espionage, their money laundering, their murders. My lungs burned as I pushed harder. Victor glanced back, panicked, and stumbled on the pool deck. The laptop flew from his grasp, sliding toward the water's edge. "Stop!" I bellowed, closing the distance. Victor scrambled for the computer, fingers just brushing its case when my shoulder tackle sent us both crashing down. We grappled at the pool's edge, neither giving ground. "You ruined everything," he spat, landing a punch to my ribs. "We built the perfect operation. By killing innocent people?" I gasped, blocking his next swing. "By burning my barn? Your stupid barn." Victor laughed between heavy breaths. "If you just followed the rules like everyone else." His knee caught me in the stomach. I doubled over as he lunged for the laptop again. My hand shot out, grabbing his ankle. He kicked free but lost balance. Victor toppled backward into the pool with a splash, dragging the laptop with him. "No!" he cried as water engulfed the device. Sparks flickered beneath the surface before dying out. I staggered to my feet as Victor thrashed in the water, watching his precious data die. Blue and red lights flashed as police cars surrounded the community center. Backup had finally arrived. Officers pulled Victor from the pool while I sagged against the fence, exhausted. Paramedics attended to my injuries as more agents swarmed the area. "The laptop's ruined," I told Meredith when she found me, her own wounds bandaged. "All that evidence gone." She smiled, holding up a small black object. "USB backup. I found it taped under Eleanor's desk while we fought. Old spy trick. Always keep a copy of what you're selling." 2 days later, I sat in the FBI field office, watching the operation unfold on multiple screens. 17 raids across 12 states hit HOA offices simultaneously. The conspiracy was vast. Over 30 board members implicated, millions in foreign payments traced, dozens of compromised properties near sensitive installations. Eleanor and Victor refused to talk, but Douglas sang like a bird once offered a deal. Kendra identified her brother's killers from photo lineups. The neighbor who'd helped burn my barn confessed to everything. My boss arrived, looking grave. "I owe you an apology," he admitted. "We should have trusted you. Someone leaked my identity," I reminded him. "And they'll face charges," he assured me. "Your suspension is lifted. With commendation." A month passed. I stood where my barn once stood, now just a concrete foundation. The HOA had been disbanded, replaced by a simple neighborhood council elected by actual vote. Meredith joined me carrying coffee. "Thinking about rebuilding? Maybe something different this time," I mused. "A workshop open to the neighborhood. Place where people can work together. Community over rules?" She smiled. "Exactly." I took a sip of coffee. "Though I'm keeping my day job. Less excitement." My phone buzzed. A text from Kendra. She'd been appointed to the new neighborhood council, determined to create something honest from the ashes of corruption. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery orange, I realized something powerful. My fight hadn't just been about a barn or my property rights. It had exposed the rot that can grow when people stop paying attention, when they surrender control to those who crave power. "You know," Meredith said quietly, "most spies use sophisticated technology or insider threats. Never seen one use an HOA before. That's what made it so perfect," I replied. "Who suspects the person complaining about your grass height is actually tracking military movements?" We laughed together, neighbors now bound by something stronger than property lines or covenants. The first stars appeared overhead as residents gathered for an impromptu block party where Eleanor's house once stood. Sometimes fighting for your home means more than just defending a building. Sometimes it means saving an entire community from the people who claim to protect it.